This week's parasha is Parashat Terumah, and a key pasuk in this parasha is Ve'asu li mikdash v'shachanti betocham, and you shall make for me a sanctuary, and I will dwell among them. Now, there's many things to learn from this verse. First of all, this verse alludes to the two things. It alludes to the Mishkan and the Beit HaMikdash, the three of them. So it's the Batei Mikdash or Batei Mikdashot. Okay? Now it's very interesting because this pasuk says those two words, Ve'asu li Mikdash. So you have already an allusion to Beit HaMikdash here. Ve'shachanti betocham Mishkan. So it's alluding to both of those structures in that. Now, just a few side points before I get a little deeper in that. When it says V'shachanti betocham, a common question that the rabbis ask is, why doesn't it say V'shachanti betocho, and I will dwell in it? Because it's in the structure. So we learn from here that Hashem is really dwelling in the people. That's the ideal place to dwell. Now, through the building, He will dwell in us. But it has to go through the building. But it wasn't supposed to be that way. In fact, before the building ever existed, it was us only. We were the Beit HaMikdash. We were a house of God, that God would come down, however that is and feels, and we would feel Him in us, in our guts. It wasn't just in a building. So when it says, I will dwell in them, even though there's a building, it just means that at this point in time, it's true, it still has to land on us, but it has to go through the building this time, from now on, ever since they sinned at the golden calf. Before that, it wasn't like that. They could have kept it where God was in them. Now, if you picture the scene of Yaakov Avinu, when he was at the place of the Beit HaMikdash, lying down with the 12 stones that he made a monument, Matzeva. He was the Beit HaMikdash. He was the Beit HaMikdash at that time. He was lying down, and I'll explain more in a few seconds. That's why he was in that spot, because there was no building. He was lying down there. He was the building. Just to show. Now, how do we see more and a deeper understanding of the Beit HaMikdash, all of them, all three, and then I'll analyze each one individually. Why should that building be a conduit or a middleman type of thing to go from it to us? How can it bounce off? How can God's presence bounce off first the building and then hit us? If that's true, which is what happens, there should be some kind of a correlation between us and the building. It's kind of like it has to be a glove that fits the hand. Because if one's going to bring to the other, they have to be somewhat the same. So it is. The truth is, the Beit HaMikdash, the temple, and the Mishkan are a form of a man, a likeness of a man. Meaning it's built in a way that it also has the parts of man. Man/woman. Right? How is that? If you remember, in the last time we had this talk here, we explained about the body having the 10 systems, which is basically the mini world that we are. And the entire universe also has 10 forces or 10 systems that work also. Now the Beit HaMikdash also is a building of 10. It has 10 parts to it. And it actually is the likeness of a man. It's a man model. So the same thing, whatever happens in there comes directly to us. Because we are a perfect fit. It has its 10 that correspond to our 10. So it is fitting exactly. Let me just go through what the 10 are. And this we find in the books of the Ari, and the Ramchal brings it down also. just to enumerate the 10 Sfirot real quickly, just so we have it documented. Okay, Keter, Chokhmah, and Binah are the 3 minds. Okay, I'm not going to explain much now. I'm just going to get it out, because it's going to be a long explanation as we get through each one. Not that we're even going to do that tonight. And of course, to one day show how the parts of the body also correlate with that. It's a long study to sit and analyze every 10 and each level of them, which we could do. So you have Keter, Chokhmah, and Binah, which are the 3 higher Sefirot, which correspond to the 3 brains. Okay? So for that, it would be the Aron. The Aron would be, the ark, would be those 3. But it's 3 parts of the Aron. You have the Keter is the highest part. That would be the highest part of the Aron, which is where God's speech comes out of, which would be the Keruvim, the cherubs. Those Keruvim in gold would correspond to Keter. Okay? The Kaporet, not the Parochet, which is the curtain inside. The Kaporet is the golden cover that the Keruvim stood on. It was still a covering. Okay? That is corresponding to Binah. To Chokhmah. And then you have the Aron itself is Binah. Okay? I just hope I didn't switch those two, but I assume that's what it is, because the Keruvim is on the Kaporet, so that's the next one down. But the Aron with its 3 parts corresponds to the brains being in one section, so to speak. So it's like those 3 with the Aron. Now you have Chesed. Chesed corresponds. Now it's interesting. Watch this. We know that the top 3, as it's explained in Kabbalah, is sealed off from this world. This world has been created with the bottom 7 Sfirot. That's why there's 7 days of the week. Each Sfirah, each force of the Sfirah created a day. And it happens every week. Because it says, Ki Sheshet Yamim, every 6 days, Hashem is again creating it. And those forces are like, sending forth a Shefa, and God's command, so to speak, to make everything be. The top 3 we don't have. That's really saved for another time. There's Olam Hazeh, this world, and there's Olam Haba, the next world. The bottom 7, including Shabbat, is this world. Although Shabbat's a little, we'll talk about the difference. And the next world is the top 3. When we will experience the existence of the top 3's realities, we're in a different time zone already, in a different place, in a different realm, a different time, which is called Olam Haba. Okay? Whether it's a different place or a different state, like we mentioned once. Where do we see this alluded to in the Mishkan? I mean, if we're going to build a Mishkan, why don't we incorporate this in that? Why don't we kind of show also that it's sealed off? You see? So we do. Hashem has that in the building plans. That's why we have the curtain, the parochet. Right after you have the Aron, you have the curtain, the big curtain, which now separates between the holy and the holy of holies. So that's the demonstration in the Mishkan world of what's going on in the major world. You see? So it's like it's cut off. We don't see in there. And now the other 7 are going to be behind the curtain. In front of the curtain.
You went from in to out. That's what we do.
So you see how the Mishkan is looking like this world. The whole creation. The first 3, and then a block you don't get to see in there, and then the other 7 which we can go into. Okay? So let's just enumerate again now those 7. You have Chesed. Chesed would be the menorah. And it's interesting how they're placed. Not that there's real form in these things, but however we have picture forms of things, they do mean something. So just like you have Chesed is on the right, the menorah was there too. And then you have Gevurah. Gevurah would correspond to the Shulchan, the bread. Because also, the word bread is like lechem, milchama, war, because we have to fight for our parnassah. There's a lot of things to talk about. So it's like Gevurah, okay? So that's on that side. Look how it's positioned. And then you have the Ketoret the Mizbach HaKetoret in the middle. That would correspond to Tiferet. And they say, Tiferet, see, it's a whole thing about Tiferet, that it also is something of a redemptive nature, those middle ones. And they say that when you bring the Ketoret, that's the highest thing really that takes away evil and the Yetzer Hara, so it has its redemptive type of things to it. I'll just throw this out now. I don't want to make a whole study of it just yet. The face also has its own 10, okay? There's also the 3 brains, the eyes, the ears, whatever it is. Also, you would have the nose as the middle. The nose would be also corresponding to Tiferet. And Tiferet has, it's really the middle, so it has somewhat of the left, of the right, somewhat of the left. That's why there's 2 nostrils, because it's like there's a right middle and a left middle. And what's perfect about the nose in this scenario? The Mizbach HaKetoret was a thing you'd smell, you see? So it was the nose, so to speak, of the Mishkan.
How come I never heard this stuff?
Again, you have the body as a whole, and you have the face too, each one. Welcome. Okay, then you have Netzach and Hod. Netzach and Hod would be the Kiyor, the basin that they put the water in to wash, and the Kano, the base of it. Somehow that's a major vessel, that it's a major part of the whole Beit Mikdash structure. That would be Netzach and Hod. Yesod would be the actual big Mizbeach, the copper one that they put the animals on. And Malchut would be the Chatzer, the courtyard that's surrounded. Okay? Now let me just make a few quick things that are parallels to some of the systems, just real quick, so we get another little bit of a feel for it. Okay, Malchut. Malchut would be in the system, would be the skeletal system. Why is that? Because it also surrounds the body. See? It surrounds and holds up and supports the body. Just like the Chatzer. It's a perfect metaphor or parallel. Just to jump to the Kiyor and the Kano, the Kiyor is filled with water. That has to do with the Netzach is the digestive system, because it's all water. Like the stomach is a water area, as opposed to air is the lungs, and energy of the mind. Like when we say we have earth, water, air, and energy, or fire, the 4 elements, so it's alluding to that. But again, I don't want to just jump around here. I'm just kind of showing you that the parallels are there. One day we can actually sit one by one and study them. Okay? And then we can take different parts of the Chumash and plug them in. For instance, the 10 sayings of Bereshit correspond. The 10 plagues of Egypt correspond. The 10 commandments correspond. It's all one chart. See? And of course the systems of the body, the systems of the cell, each cell, and the Beit HaMikdash. And then you really know what a Sphira is. Already you know what Gvura is, because you see so many examples. It's all pointing to the same type of thing. You kind of understand now what Gvura is, and what Tiferet is, and all the Sphirot. They kind of have more of a, palatable feeling to it than just these vague concepts that people don't really know how to explain.